Hi everybody, this is Bonnie with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and today I want to bring you a passion project. This is a project that I've had on my heart for many years, and with the coming of the 250th celebration of our country's independence and freedom, I wanted to share with you my Heirloom American flag. Let me go ahead and put some pictures of that right now so that you can get a better view of this project. And to my international friends who live outside the U.S., I just want to thank you for your indulgence on this project. I know this may not be one that you will want to be interested in right now, but thank you for your patience as we celebrate the country and the home that we absolutely love. And it is my hope and my wish that you feel the same about your homeland as we feel about ours. In this project, you'll notice that not all of the stripes are the same. In fact, each of them is quite different, using a different stitch. And this is to try to embody the motto of our country, E pluribus unum, which is Latin for out of many, one. So I thought this would just be a beautiful opportunity to show just the uniqueness of our country by varying the stitches in this project. Well, come along with me and I'll show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using these colors of a yarn by Lion Brand called Local Grown. This is 100% USA wool, and let's look at the stats on this. Each of these has 3.5 ounces or 100 grams, which equates to 186 yards or 170 meters. The colors that I'm going to be using and the number of skeins that you will require are going to be listed across the bottom of the screen. They will also be listed in the video description. So I'm using the color Apple Pie, the color Vanilla Bean, and this color is called Liberty. And for the wood-like border, I'm using the color Barn. I just figured since we were making this very special project celebrating our country's 250th birthday, that how appropriate it would be to make it out of yarn from our country. That said, I understand that this is not going to be the cheapest yarn available. And if you want to replace it with some 100% acrylic, there is no problem with doing that. Use whatever you have locally and whatever that you can find that fits your budget and lifestyle. I'm also recommending that you have 2 crochet hooks. The gauge hook that I'm going to be using is a 5.50 or the I crochet hook. And be sure to pay attention to the millimeters on that because some hooks are identified with different letter markings. And as a secondary hook, I'm going to be using size H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. And just for the record, this is going to be used primarily for any rows of single crochets, which we're going to be using when transitioning from the different colored stripes. I'm also recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. I'm also recommending that you have a few sets of blocking mats or whatever you use to block large projects, because this will be required in order to have the best possible outcome. And I like using these knit blockers. They have them in 4-pronged and 8-pronged. They come in a beautiful box. I do have a link in a video description should you wish to try these. You're also going to need about 50 to 100 T-pins to help you block your stars. To begin, we're going to start with the size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook, and we're going to work a slip knot. Make sure you leave a nice long tail, at least 5 inches or so long, so that we can weave that in at the end of this project. After making that slip knot, we're going to make a starting chain of 243. Now, that's a lot of chains, and it's important that you have the correct number to start. If you have trouble counting, what you can do is as you reach certain numbers, let's say 50 chains or 100, you can mark that with a stitch marker should you feel like you need that kind of help. That way you don't have to recount stitches if you lose your count or someone interrupts you as you're counting. All right, so go ahead and work that starting chain of 243 chains. After completing my chain of 243 chains, we're going to start by working a double crochet in the fourth chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, into that fourth chain, we're going to work a double crochet. Now, if you are one who likes to work in the back bump of the chain, feel free to do that. I am not necessarily one of those, so I like working along the side V. But anyway, just go ahead and work a double crochet in each chain all the way across. At the end of this row, you should have a total of 240 double crochets, and that's not including the turning chain. This is what you should have after completing row 1. For row number 2, we're going to turn and we're going to begin the ribbing. So this is row 2. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the first stitch and we're going to work a front post double crochet where we put the needle around the body or the waist of the stitch, and then we complete that double crochet for back post. We come in from the back door and the hook goes around the stitch and out the side door. It's wrapping it from the back side. Pull up a loop and we complete the double crochet. And so that is how we work front post double crochets and back post double crochet. So go ahead and work this all the way across the row, and I will show you how the row ends. After we complete that row, we're going to turn and we're going to chain 2 for row number 3. Skip that first stitch and starting with a back post double crochet, and then we work a front post double crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. Back post double crochet followed by a front post double crochet. At the end of row 3, we end with a back post double crochet and a half double in that turning chain. So this is what you should have after completing 3 rows. Now for rows 4, 5, 6, and 7, so that's 4 additional rows, we're just going to do the same thing, just like we did with row 3, chain 2, and then we start with front post and then back post, front post, back post. For row number 5, it's going to begin with a back post since the back side will be facing. And then of course row 6, you'll start with a front post double crochet. Row 7 will start with a back post double crochet. So we're just maintaining the ribbing, and if you're not sure which is which, just make sure that you do what you see. When you see the stitch in front, that's a front post. When you see the stitch in the back, you're going to do the back post, and we're just going to maintain our lines. So go ahead and work the next 4 rows. All right, I went ahead and worked an additional row of the ribbing. So now I have a total of 8 rows. So if you need to work that extra row, go ahead and do that. So this is what you should have after completing a total of 8 rows. Now for row number 9, we're going to work row 1 of a stitch that is called the low front ridge. And in order to do that, we're going to start with a chain 1. We're going to skip the first stitch, but trust me on this, this is not going to affect the stitch count because this is just going to be a surface stitch. So we skip the first stitch, and working only in the front loop, we work a slip stitch. You're going to want to work the normal tension as you work this row, because if you work this too tightly, it's going to bunch this up, and you don't want to do that. So you want to don't want to be extremely relaxed. You want to maintain normal tension, And if you find that you have a really hard time making this even as you go across, what you can do, and if you find that it's just too tight, what you can do is actually upsize. Go to the next size up, which would be a size J, just to work this row so that it's nice and even. So go ahead and work these slip stitches, working only in the front, or the front loop, all the way across the row. At the end of row 9, we're going to work a slip stitch into that last stitch. We're not going to work in that turning chain, and then we're going to fasten off. Go ahead and give that a chain and a tug, and as soon as I find my scissors here, I'm going to trim the yarn right there. Now, we're not done, but what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way back to the beginning of this row. This is row 9, and we're going to keep the same side facing us. Now that we're back to the beginning of where row 9 began, and we still have the front side facing, we're going to do something really important. We're going to change our large hook to a smaller hook. I'm going to the size H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter. And this is mostly to help control the size of the stitch, because as I notice as I work with various cablings and stitches like the ribbing that tend to compress or bring the stitches a little bit closer together, if I follow that with a row of single crochets with the same size hook, that tends to expand. It tends to be larger, and making the process look uneven. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to join in that very first stitch. We're going to join with the front side facing, but I'm going to turn just in case you can't see the stitch we're going to work in. We're going to work in the remaining stitch of that double crochet from row number 8, and this is where that stitch is. Now, we worked the slip stitch in that other loop, as you recall. So the first stitch is right here, and again, if you can't see which loop it is, look at it from the back, put the hook in from the back side, and eventually you'll see where this is, but I just want you to be very clear on that. So we're going to join this vanilla bean color. I'm going to pull the loop through, give it a chain. I'm going to pull that a little bit tighter there so that knot doesn't show, and then work a single crochet in that very space, and then going across in that back loop that remains, we're going to work single crochets. Again, remember, don't forget to change to that H hook after we get to the end of this row and do our turning chain and turn. We're going to return to the larger hook. So keep this nearby, and please don't forget to go back to the larger hook after the end of this row, which is row 10 or row 2 of the low front ridge. We will be using the low front ridge 1 and 2 in this way to transition between colors as we change from stripe to stripe. Okay, so go ahead and work those single crochets. Now let me give you a good look at this. You should have a raised portion here, and what this is going to do is it's going to give us a nice clean visual separation of the colors. There's not going to be color bleeding or any of that. All right, which if I had gone with the back side facing, there would be a little bit of a color bleed, and I just wanted to avoid that. So that's why we're clipping the yarn on one end and then starting on this end again. Okay, all right, so go ahead and work that all the way across the row. At the end of row 10, let me just show you that I've worked in every stitch, and I'm going to put the smaller hook aside, and I'm bringing back the larger hook. All right, so we're going to turn for row 11. This is the back side facing. We're going to chain 2, which does not count as a stitch, and we're going to work double crochets in each stitch all the way across. I know this is going to not make a whole lot of sense just yet, but once we finish this row and we begin the 4-post cable, it will make perfect sense. All right, so work double crochets all the way across the row. Again, using the larger I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. This is what you should have after completing 11 rows. Now for row number 12, we're back to the front side facing, and we are going to work our 4-post cable. But before we do that, we're going to chain 2. We're going to work 2 stitches that are going to be alongside the border of these rows here, just like that. 2 double crochets, and we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in the next 2 stitches. This is the larger stitch, the front post treble. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to go over to this 2 stitches that we just skipped, and the one furthest away, we work first, and then we work the second stitch, just like that. And that's what we're going to do all the way across the row. So I'll do a couple more of these with you, and make sure we don't reuse stitches that we've already used. So this one has already been used, so we're going to skip the next 2, and then we're going to work front post trebles in the next 2 stitches. And working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in these 2 stitches that we skipped. Again, starting with the one that's furthest away from where we just left, and then the next one. Okay, this is after 2 cable crossings. I know it doesn't look like much of a cable now, but after we work a couple more rows, it will. And then we're going to do this again. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, and then working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble here and then here. All right, so go ahead and work this all the way across, and I'll show you how the row ends. When you come to the end of this row, you should have 2 unworked stitches, and we're just going to work double crochets into each of those stitches. Okay, so that is how this row ends. Now we're going to turn to begin row 13. This will have the back side facing. We're going to start with a chain 2. Again, does not count as a stitch in the stitch count. And we're going to work half double crochets in each of the first 2 stitches. And after that, we're going to work back post double crochets in each stitch until we get to the end of the row. So just back post double crochets in the order that the stitches appear. We're not crossing anything. We're just working these straight across. And let me show you. I've just completed working 4 back post double crochets across that first cable crossing, and then I'll do the next one. So it's just 1, 2, 3, and 4. So go ahead and work that, and I will show you how the row ends. At the end of row 13, we're just going to work half double crochets in each of those 2 remaining stitches. And if you're curious as to why I'm using half doubles instead of double crochets, it has to do with the height of the back post double crochets, which equals about the height of a half double. All right, so I'm just trying to make the stitches look as even as possible. Now for rows 14 and 15, we're simply going to repeat rows 12 and 13. I'll go ahead and start you again on row 14 with the chain 2, and then we're going to work double crochets in each of those first 2 stitches. And then again, we begin by skipping the next 2 stitches, and we're going to cross the cables. We work 2 front post treble crochets, and then we work in front of those 2 stitches, and we work front post trebles in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. All right, and so this does look like a little more like a cable now. So go ahead and work row 14 and then work row 15, which again is the same as row 13 that we just completed. So go ahead and work those 2 rows. This is what you should have after completing 15 rows. So now for the next 2 rows, we're going to again repeat rows 12 and 13. Okay, so after this, you'll have 1, 2, 3 sets of cable crossings. This is what you should have after completing 17 rows. Now, if your work is curling like mine is right now, please don't worry about that. We have many, many more rows to work, and that will, between that and some blocking, it will all be fine. All right, so now for row number 18, we're going to chain 1, and this is where we're going to work another row of the low front ridge. So working only in the front loops, we're going to skip that first loop, and then we're just going to work slip stitches in each stitch across. And again, don't worry about the stitch count being off by a stitch when we skip that first stitch. And the real reason that I do that is because visually that chain 1 space kind of lays in the place where a stitch would be, and it prevents a bulging stitch here on the edge. But it's the row that comes after this one that maintains the constant 240 stitch counts. So technically this row will only have 239 stitches, but that will come back to 240 when we work the next row, which we will again return to the red colored yarn. So go ahead and work this all the way across the row. So this is what you should have after completing 18 rows. And we now have 2 completed stripes, and we just finished working that low front ridge. So now we're going to give it a chain and a tug. We're going to find our sharp scissors, and we're going to cut a nice strand there to finish this off, because now we need to go all the way back to the beginning, still with the front side facing, just like we did at the last color change. So now remember, before we work the single crochet rows, we need to exchange our I hook for an H hook. This is the one size smaller. And so we're going to work our slip knot. Go ahead and work that chain and work a single crochet in each of those stitches. This is the remaining loop. And if you're not sure, give it a turn and look for the stitch, and then look for the loop that's remaining. Okay, so again, don't forget to change to that smaller hook. It'll just keep the throw looking better, and you won't have rows that just kind of poke out and are misfit. All right, so go ahead and work this all the way across the row. So this is what you should have after completing 19 rows and after row 1, or the beginning of the third stripe. So let's go ahead and turn. Very important thing we need to do at the beginning of row 20 is switch back.
to our size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook, or the larger size hook that you are using for this project. So let's go ahead and we're going to chain 2 at the beginning of this. We're going to work a half double crochet in the first stitch and in the second stitch. These again will be buffer stitches to the cable that we're going to use. Now we're going to work the arrow cable, but I have adjusted this just a bit to use half double crochets instead of double crochets. So if you followed my work in the past, this may be the first time you're seeing this, using half doubles instead of double crochets, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So to make the arrow stitch, and keep in mind we have the back side facing us at the moment, we're going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. We're going to work a treble crochet in that next stitch. Now working in front of the treble crochet, we're going to work half double crochets in each of those 3 stitches that we skipped. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now that treble crochet should be on the other side. This is facing away from us. So let's do that again. Skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. We're going to work a treble crochet in that next stitch, which is the 4th stitch. And then working in front of this, we're going to work 1, 2, 3 half double crochet. Start with the one that's furthest away. 1, 2, and then 3. I'm going to do this one more time with you. Skip the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Treble crochet in the next stitch. And then working in front of that stitch, we're going to half double in those 3 stitches we just skipped. 1, 2, and 3. Now let's pause, and again, this is the back side facing, and let's see what the front side is going to look like this. All right, so go ahead and work that all the way across. I'll show you how this row ends. At the end of row 20, we're going to work half double crochets in each of the last 2 stitches. All right. Now for row 21, we're going to chain 2. We're going to half double into those first 2 stitches. After that, we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work a treble crochet into the treble crochet from the last row. Okay, like that. And then working behind this stitch, we're going to half double in each of the 3 stitches that we just skipped. Just like that. And then now you see the 2 sides of an arrow. All right, so let's do this a couple more times so that we get the hang of it. Skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and be sure that next stitch that you work in is the one that is directly connected to the treble from the last row. Okay, like that. Working behind this stitch, half double in each of those 3 stitches that we skipped. 1, 2, and 3. And let's do this one more time. Skip 3, 1, 2, 3. Treble crochet in that treble crochet space. Working behind the treble, we work 1, 2, 3 half doubles. And so you can kind of see them developing here. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of this row, we're going to work half doubles into the last 2 stitches. Let's pause and take a look, and we have a beautiful arrow across the row. Okay, so now we're going to turn, and we are going to change our hook again back to the smaller H or 8 or 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. So, and this is because we are going to work a row of single crochet. So we're going to chain 1, and we're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way across. So this is what you should have after completing 22 rows. So we're going to focus mainly here on that 3rd stripe that we're building. Now to begin row 23, we're actually going to switch back to our larger crochet hook, going back to the size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter. I'm going to try to be as deliberate as I can to remind you of this, because it is really important that we get these stitches looking as best we can. All right, so now for row 23, we're going to work another arrow row, but we're going to do it differently than we did this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to work row 21 and then row 20. Okay, I know that may sound a little confusing, but it's going to give us some arrows going in the opposite direction, and I think that's going to be kind of cool. We're going to chain 2, half double in the first 2 stitches, and then after that we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work a treble crochet in that next stitch, like so. And then working behind that treble crochet, we're going to work 1, 2, 3 half doubles. Okay? So go ahead and work that across. I'll work one more with you. Skip 3 stitches, treble crochet in that next stitch, and then working behind this stitch, we work half doubles in each of those 3 skipped stitches. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. We're going to work half double crochets, 1 in the last 2 stitches. So let's take a look at what we have here. All right. This is with the back side facing. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to half double in the first 2 stitches. After that, I'm going to go back to skipping the next 3 stitches, work a treble in the next stitch, which is also the same treble from the previous row, and then half double in each of those 3 skipped stitches. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Let me do this for you one more time. Skip the next 3 stitches, and it's really nice the way they're clustered together, so it should be very easy to see that 4th stitch where we work our treble crochet, and again working in front of that stitch, half double in those 3 skipped stitches, just like that. When we turn to see the other side, we see arrows going this direction, and now the arrows are going to go the other direction. So from east to west, it's going to go back and forth. Row 24 ends by working 1 half double crochet in each of the last 2 stitches. First of all, we're going to change our hook sizes. We're going to change back to the smaller H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. Work a chain 1, and then we're simply going to single crochet in each stitch across. So let's go ahead and turn. And before we go any further, we're going to switch back to our size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. Very important. And chain 2. We're going to work, go ahead and move that. We're going to work half double crochets in those first 2 stitches, and then we're going to work by skipping the next 3 stitches, a treble in that next stitch, and then working in front of that treble crochet, we're going to work half doubles in the 3 stitches that we skipped. So that should look familiar to you since we've done that a couple of times. Let's do it one more time. Skip the next 3 stitches, treble crochet in that next stitch, working in front of that stitch. We're going to half double crochet in those 3 stitches that we just skipped. Row 26 ends by working a half double in those last 2 stitches. So let's go ahead and turn. We're going to chain 2, and again half double in those first 2 stitches, and then we're going to complete this arrow, skip the next 3 stitches, and as you recall, work that treble in that next stitch, which should be where that treble crochet was worked, and working behind this treble, half double crochet in those 3 stitches that were skipped. All right, so go ahead and work row 26. At the end of this row, you'll work half doubles in the last 2 stitches. So at the end of row 27, we end with the 2 half double crochets, as I mentioned earlier. Now we're going to do something really important. We're going to change the size of the hook back to the smaller hook again. Chain 1 and turn, and we're going to work another row of single crochets. So go ahead and work those all the way across the row. So now that we've finished that single crochet row, it's time to change our hook again. Change it back to the larger I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter. Now I said this earlier in the video, but we're primarily using that smaller hook for the single crochet rows. So now for row 29, we're going to chain 1, skip that first stitch, and we're just working in the front loop. We're going to work that low front ridge again because we're getting ready to switch colors after this row. So go ahead and work those slip stitches all the way across. And again, this is just a surface stitch. We're not going to be working in this particular stitch again. And yes, there will be only 239 of these rather than 240. All right. Technically, if you count the chain 1 at the beginning, there are 240. But anyway, it's really not as important as the fact that there are 240 loops left of the back loop that we will be working in the next row. So this again is row 29. The next row will be row 30, starting with back to the white color. At the end of row 29, we're going to give it a chain and a tug and fasten off the red yarn once again. And then we're going to go all the way back to the beginning without flipping or turning, so we're going to keep the front side facing. So I'm back at the beginning of this row, And I'm going to switch back to my size H hook, which is the smaller hook, because we're going to work another row of single crochets. And again, we're going to look at the back side, and we see that the first loop is right here. You see that row of single crochets, and we've worked in that front loop. Now we're going to work in the back loop, and this is the loop we're going to work in. So we're going to access that, and I'm going to work my slip knot. And now we're going to join with a chain. If you want to give that a little bit of a tug, you can. And then we're going to start our single crochet row in that back loop. Again, this is the same side that was facing on the last row. Make sure that you don't just turn and work this. So we're rejoining it on the other end, and we're going to work single crochets in that remaining loop. Now again, if you can't see where this is, or if you get confused, if you have to put this project down and come back to it later and you're like, oh my goodness, where is that loop? Go ahead and find that single crochet row, and then you see the loops right there. Okay, I know they're a little trickier to see with the front side facing, but if you just tilt it back a little bit, you can see the stitches there, and that loop you need is right there. So go ahead and work this all the way across. This is row number 30. After finishing row 30, working those single crochets across, we're going to still hang on to this size H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. Do not change hook. So now that we have turned, we're going to start row 31, which is the woven stitch. We're going to start with a chain 2, and this stitch is going to be worked into every other stitch. It's very different, so I am going to go as slow as I can so that you can understand the rhythm of the hook. It's very different, so let me go ahead and just demonstrate this. We wrap the hook, we're going to skip the first stitch, we're going to work in the next hook, in the next stitch rather, insert, pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on the hook, pull through 1 loop only, yarn over, pull through 2. We're halfway done at this point. Wrap the hook again, insert into the same space, pull up a loop, and then just without wrapping, just pull through those 2 stitches or 2 loops on the hook, and then you've completed the first stitch. This is actually 1 stitch. So now we're going to skip the next single crochet stitch here, and we're going to work in the next stitch. So it's in every other stitch that we work this. Again, wrap, insert, pull up a loop, pull through 1 loop only, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again, insert into same place, pull up a loop, and then pull through 2. Notice we're not wrapping for the second part of this stitch. Again, yarn over, skip the next stitch, and then worked in the next, insert, pull up a loop, pull through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, and then pull through 2 stitches. I know it's a very different kind of a feel, so do be sure if you need to back this up and review. I'll do it one more time. Take the time to do that, to stop and just review, so that you can give your muscle memory a chance to develop on this stitch. So again, wrap, and we're doing it into every other stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, and then pull through 2. Okay, so go ahead and work that all the way across, and I'll show you how the row ends. So row 31 ended by working a woven stitch in that last stitch. So let's go ahead and turn for row 32. We're going to chain 2 both now and at the end of each row, or to start each new row, you're going to chain 2. And this is what we're going to do for the next several rows. Just look across the bottom of your screen and I'll show you how many rows we're going to work this way. But this is how you work the rows that follow the foundation row for the woven stitch. We're just going to continue working woven stitches, but in between the woven stitch. So this will be the first stitch of the row, and then we work in between the next two stitches, and this stitch is also completely reversible. So if you wanted to try it and let's say a scarf or a sweater or another item, or even just a baby blanket or something, just of all woven stitches, the blanket will be totally reversible. Okay, so we're just going to work in between the woven stitches, and let me show you, when you get to the end of the row, you're going to work the last stitch in the chain 2 turning chain, and then you would chain 2, turn, and then again work in between the woven stitches. So go ahead and work that designated number of rows, and I'll show you how to discontinue this row. So just to be clear, we've worked 8 additional rows, so that brings us to a total of 9 rows using this woven stitch. And then of course we have the base row down here, so that is row number 30, and then this will be row number 39. All right, so now we're going to go on to row number 40, and we are still using our size H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. We've not switched hooks yet, but we will at the end of this row. Okay, so we're going to start row 40 with a chain 2, and to discontinue this woven stitch pattern, we're just going to work 2 single crochets in between that space that's in between those woven stitches. Okay, and if you're worried that this is kind of spread out a little bit, is a little bit wider along the sides, this row of single crochets is going to tighten things up again for us. It's going to make it a bit more even. Okay, so I know this this stitch does tend to spread out a bit, but again, we're bringing it back in here with our single crochets. So go ahead and work that all the way across, and you should have a total of 240 stitches again. And you had half of that before, but we're going to bring the stitch count right back. And again, that's not including the turning chain at the beginning of the row. At the end of this row, we're going to work 2 single crochets into that turning chain, again bringing our stitch count back to 240 stitches. Now it is time to change our hook again, and we are going to change it up to the larger size hook. This is the I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. So now let's turn for the next row. We're going to chain 1, and this is going to be the low back rib. So what we're going to do is, starting in the next stitch, and again this will not affect the overall stitch count, we're going to work a slip stitch. Now this is working in the back loop only, and when we come back for the next row with the new color, we're going to work in the remaining loop, which is right here. So go ahead and work in that back loop with those slip stitches all the way across, and I will show you how this row ends and the transition to the red again. Okay, so this is the back side facing, and the front side will look like this. Okay, at the end of this row, we are going to work an additional slip stitch in that turning chain. That's going to bring our stitch count to 240 stitches. So let's go ahead and give it a knot there, or a chain, and as soon as I find my scissors, we're going to fasten this strand off. So after fastening that stitch off, we are not going to turn. We're going to keep the back side facing us, and you'll understand the madness here once we complete this. All right, so now we have the back side facing us, and we're going to join the red color. We've gone back to our H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. Very important, because we're working this row that is basically non-compressed. All right, we're going to make our slip knot. We're going to chain 2. This does not count as a stitch for the record. And then we're going to work a double crochet in that same loop, and in each of these remaining loops across. So working in this loop here, which should be clearly seen, working at it from this direction. So go ahead and work this all the way across the row, and I'll show you. This is what it looks like with the back side facing you now. And then when you turn, this is what it looks like with the front side facing. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. Let's go ahead and take another look at this. So we are now starting on the 5th stripe, and now we need to go ahead and switch hooks. Once again, we're switching back up to the size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. So this is what you should have after completing 42 rows. So now to begin row 43, we're going to chain 2, and this is the row where we begin our wheat stitch. We're going to crochet a double crochet into those first 2 stitches. So after those 2 double crochets, we're going to start what we call a back cross. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches. I've prepared my hook for a treble crochet. We're going to work a front post treble in the next stitch. So we skip 2 and then work front post trebles in the next 2 stitches. Now working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to work front post trebles in these 2 stitches. So the way we do that is we prepare our hook with that double wrap, come in to the opening, which is right here, and I'm using the nerve endings of my tall man finger and my thumb to locate the stitch that I'm going to be working around, and that is the stitch. And then we just complete a front post treble. Let's do that again. Coming in to that same opening right here, we locate the stitch. You can see it. It's right here. And I use my finger and thumb to help navigate that hook around that stitch, and then just complete that treble. It's a little tricky at first, but if you just take the time to locate the stitches, that will help quite a bit. The second part of the stitch is much simpler. We're just going to skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble here and here. These are the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Let's try that again. Need to have 2 wraps for that treble crochet. And then the next stitch, which is right here. In between the bottom or the wheat stitch, we're going to work 2 double crochets just worked into the top loop. And this is what we're going to work all the way across the row. Let's do this again. We skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, now this is where we work the back cross like this. We're going to work behind these 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble here and here. Even though we call it a back cross, we're still using front post treble. So we select this one. Now you can't even pull these stitches down in the front if you need to. So that's 1. And we need 1 more. Coming into, again, behind those other 2 stitches, locate that stitch. And there it is. Now we work the other side, which is the front cross, which is much easier. Skip the next 2 stitches. Front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Now working in front of these 2 stitches, we work front post trebles here and here. 1 there, and the next one right here. And then again, we're going to work 2 double crochets just worked into those top loops as normal. Let's pause and take a look at that. And so that's what we're going to work all the way across the row. Again, back cross, front cross, 2 double crochets, a back cross, a front cross, 2 double crochets. So go ahead and work that. So after having worked this all the way across, you should end by working the back cross and then a front cross, and then we're going to work a double crochet worked into the turning chain. You should still have the constant stitch count of 240 stitches. Okay, so let's turn. So now with the back side facing, we're going to start row 44 with a chain 2. We're going to skip that first stitch, and then we're going to work back post double crochets over the wheat cable section. Make sure you get all 4 of these stitches with each set. So do be careful that you get all 8 of these stitches for every wheat cable. Now when you have the back side facing and you come to the double crochets, we're not going to work double crochets, we're actually going to work half doubles with the back side facing. So I know that's a little different, but the reasoning behind this is when you work a half double crochet into the loops like you normally would, it is the same height as a back post double crochet, if that makes sense. So when the back side is facing, you're going to be working half doubles in these stitches. When the front side is facing, you're going to be working double crochets in these same spaces. So go ahead and work this all the way across the row. Again, back post double crochets in those 8 stitches, and then half double crochets in the double crochets from the last row. So go ahead and work that all the way across. Row 44 ends by working half double crochets in both stitches. For row 45, it's going to be the same that we worked on row 43, but I wanted to work this with you just to remind you a couple things. First of all, we're working double crochets in those 2 stitches that are between all of the cables, and also wanted to show you how this looks. So we're going to go ahead and skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, and we're just going to repeat what we did 2 rows below by working the back cross where we come in behind those 2 stitches and we front post treble here and here. It should be much easier to do since you are just going to be duplicating what we did 2 rows ago. Okay, so that was our back cross. And now for the front cross, this is the easy side. Skip 2 stitches, and then we front post treble in the next 2 stitches. working in front of those last 2 stitches, we front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. And then again, we follow those next 2 stitches by working double crochets into those. Remember, double crochets when the front side is facing, half double when the back side is facing. And so now you see how this opens up, kind of like wheat on a stalk. And that's what we call that, the wheat stitch. So go ahead and work row 45, which is just like I showed you here, all the way across. The main difference, let me show you the end of this row. When you get to the end of the row, make sure that you work a double crochet into the turning chain. You need to do that so we keep our stitch count constant. And then for row 46, we'll have the back side facing. It's going to be the same as what we did for row 44. And that's where we work half double crochets where the double crochets are, and we work back post double crochets over those 8 stitches, those 8 wheat cable stitches. Okay, so go ahead and work rows 45 and 46. So this is what you should have after completing 46 rows. Do be sure that you only worked half double crochets in those last 2 stitches and did not work in the turning chain. We only work in the turning chain for this particular stitch when the front side is facing. Okay, so now for rows 47 and 48, we're going to repeat rows 45 and 46 once more. So go ahead and work those next 2 rows. So this is what you should have. This is the 5th stripe, and I've just completed 48 rows. All right, so now for row 49, we're just going to keep the same hook. Again, I'm using the I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. I'm going to chain 1. We're going to skip that first stitch, and working only in the front loop, we're going to work slip stitches all the way across. Again, this is the low front ridge, row number 1. So go ahead and finish this row. At the end of row 49, I did work a slip stitch into that turning chain, and then I'm going to give it another chain and fasten off. Clip a generous strand so that can be hidden into the work when we get to the point of finishing. So after fastening off, we're going to go right back to the beginning of row 49, and we're going to begin row 50. We're going to change to the white colored yarn, and we're going to go back to the size H, which is the smaller of the 2 hooks. This is size 8 or 5 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. We're going to join into, let's see, the first stitch. Let's look at the back side so that we know where this first stitch is. It's going to be right here. So I'm going to put that hook right down there. And let's go ahead and do our slip knot. And then we're going to join with a chain 1. I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug, and then a single crochet in that same space. Then we're going to single crochet in the remaining loop of row 48, which was that row of double crochets and back post doubles. Okay, right here. I'll go ahead and turn so you can see where this is being crocheted into. Don't want there to be any doubt. So it's the remaining loop right here. Okay, right there. So go ahead back to the front side facing, and we're just going to work those single crochets all the way across the row. So this is what you should have at the end of row 50. You should still have 240 stitches. So for row 51, we're going to turn. We're going to chain 2. We're going to work half double crochets. We're just working through the top loops here in the first 2 stitches. Now we're going to begin working the basket weave stitch, and we're going to work this in multiples of 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to work front post double crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. And also, incidentally, we're sticking with the same H or 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook, just to let you know. And the main reason for that is there's not going to be as much compression with these stitches as there will be with other cable stitches. All right, and then so after that, we're going to work back post double crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. Okay, just like that. 4 front post double crochets and then 4 back post double crochet. So go ahead and work that all the way across, and I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 51, we end with 4 front post double crochets and then a half double crochet into the last 2 stitches. Okay. Now for row 52, we have the front side facing. We're going to chain 2. We're going to work half doubles in those first 2 stitches. And then we're going to continue the basket weave. We'll start with 4 back post double crochets. Let me try that one again. So 4 back post double crochets, and then we're going to follow that with 4 front post double crochets, just like that. So go ahead and work that across the row. At the end of row 52, we work 4 back post double crochets and then 2 half doubles, each work in those 2 half double crochets at the end of the row. So let's go ahead and turn on to row 53, and we're going to continue the same pattern. We're going to chain 2, half double in those first 2 half double crochets. Then we're going to work 4 front post double crochets, and that's going to be followed with 4 back post double crochets, and that's what we're going to work all the way across. So go ahead and work 4 front post followed by 4 back post, and I'll show you how the row ends. Row 53 ends by working 4 front post double crochets and half doubles in those 2 last half double crochets. All right, so we're going to turn for row 54. Let's go ahead and change 2. Now this is where we are going to change the direction of the basket weave, and this is what's going to give us, well, the whole texture behind the basket weave. So we're going to work chain 2 and 2 half double crochets Now where we have back post, previously we're going to work front post, so we're going to change this to 4 front post double crochets, and then where we had the front post, we're going to work 4 back post double crochets. And 4. Okay, so that's what we're going to work all the way across. 4 front post double crochets followed by 4 back post double crochets. Make sure that you're changing the direction of the weave with every set of 4 stitches, just like that. At the end of row 54, we end with 4 front post double crochets and 2 half doubles, 1 in each of the last 2 stitches. Let's go ahead and turn for row 55. Now for the next 2 rows, we're going to work the basket weave stitch. We'll just work them one at a time, but we're going to follow what we see. So we start off with the chain 2 and 2 half double crochets, and then we're going to follow that with 4 back post double crochets. We're just going to crochet in the direction that we see. So if we see post stitches, we're going to crochet post, back post stitches, and if we see front post, we will crochet front post just to go along with what we see. So after those 4 back post double crochets, we're going to work 4 front post double crochets. So go ahead and work this all the way across. This is row 55 and we are on stripe number 6. Row 55 ends with 4 back post double crochets and half doubles in the last 2 stitches. All right, row 56, let's turn. And we're just going to continue this pattern with a chain 2, half double in each of those half doubles from the previous row. And when you see front post, work front post double crochet. So we'll work 4 front post double crochets, and we're going to follow that with 4 back post double crochets, just like that. And so we're going to work this all the way across, 4 front post double crochets followed by 4 back post double crochets. The row will end with 4 front post double crochets and then 2 half doubles worked into those last 2 stitches. So go ahead and work row 56. Row 56 ends with those 4 front post double crochets and half doubles worked into the half doubles. All right, row 57, we're going to turn, chain 2, half double in those first 2 half double crochets, and now we're going to change the direction. So we're going to work front post double crochets in the next 4 stitches, and after that we're going to follow with 4 back post double crochets. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. Row 57 ends with 4 front post double crochets and those 2 half doubles. Okay, we're going to turn for row 58 and we are just going to continue the pattern that we see. So we're going to chain 2, half double in those first 2 stitches. All right, after that, we are going to work back post double crochets over the next 4 stitches. Again, just maintaining the weave that we see, and then follow that with 4 front post double crochets. All right, just like that. So go ahead and finish row 58. This is what you should have after completing 58 rows, and row 58 ends with 4 back post double crochets and 2 half doubles, 1 in each of those last 2 stitches. So now for row 59, we're going to turn to have the back side facing. Going to chain 1, and we're just going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across the row. So go ahead and finish row 59. This is what you should have after completing 59 rows. You should still have 240 stitches in the row. Now we're going to change from our H hook back to the size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter so we can work another low front ridge. This will be officially row number 60. So we'll start with the chain 1, skip that first stitch, and working only in that front loop, we're going to work slip stitches all the way across the row. So go ahead and finish row 60. We will work a slip stitch in the turning chain as we have done in the past, and then fasten off at the end of this row. At the end of row 60, I went ahead and fastened off. Now we're going to keep the front side facing, and we're going to go all the way back to the beginning again. So now we are back at the beginning, and we're going to change our hook from the I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook back down to the H, which is the size 8 or 5.00 millimeter. And this is the row that we are going to begin working our blue field. I'm going to bring the blue yarn in finally. Now before we begin this row, I've gone ahead and placed a stitch marker in this place right here. And so what I'm going to have you do is we're going to count off 96 stitches. So start from the left side with the front side facing. It's easier to do that if you'd like. And you can count 96 stitches across. And then on stitch number 96 from the left, go ahead and put a stitch marker. Now, if you want, you can count 144 stitches from the right, and you end up with the same thing. So this is the stitch that's going to tell us to switch from the red to the blue for our blue field for that first row. All right, so let's go ahead, and we're going to start by adding the red back in here. And let me also mention before we get to that point, we're going to work one particular style stitch for the stripe, but when we get to the blue field, we're going to change to a different style stitch. It's going to have a similar height so that this comes out evenly, but it will be a different stitch, and I think you'll get the hang of it once we get started. But now let's go ahead and start row 61. We're going to start in this stitch right here. We're working in the remaining loop. So let's go ahead and make our slip knot. I'm going to chain 2. After working that chain 2, we're going to work a half double crochet into that same loop, and we're going to do that into every back loop across. Make sure you, again, are working into that remaining loop. And again, if you're not sure you're working in the proper loop, turn to look at the back side, find that single crochet, and it's the loop right here. All right, so go ahead and work those for 144 stitches or until you reach the stitch marker, and then at that point we will change the style of stitching that we're going to use, and we're going to change the yarn color as well. Okay, I've worked across with the 144 stitches. I haven't done the last stitch yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and wrap the hook. Now this is the stitch before the stitch marker. Okay, so before I complete this stitch, I'm going to switch, and I'm going to pull that on through. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky, but I think you'll get the hang of it. What we're going to do is we're going to have two different colors here, but what we're going to do is we're going to just drop this back behind. Do not cut this yarn, because we're going to pick this up again after we come back the other direction. Okay, so now we have our blue, and here's our stitch marker marking that first stitch of the blue field. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do, let's go ahead and just remove it. It'll be easier to deal with. So now we're going to work the double stitch, and the double stitch is a combination of the single crochet and double crochet. So we're going to work a single crochet for that first stitch, and then we're going to work a double crochet for the next stitch. And we're going to do that until we get to the end of the row. A single crochet and then a double crochet. I know it doesn't look like much right now, but after we work several rows, you'll see how this pattern plays out. So single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, and then a double crochet. Be careful that you don't, fall into working all single crochets or doubles. I have done that. So we have to just concentrate single crochet and double crochet. All right. So there we have the beginning of the blue field. How exciting. And just to be clear, you'll have 96 stitches to the end, and I'll show you how this ends. At the end of row 61, we're going to work a half double crochet worked into that last final loop. Okay, so you had a single crochet and then a half double crochet. I know this yarn color is very dark, and hopefully you can see that. These are simpler stitches for sure. So let's go ahead and turn for row 62. And for the first 96 stitches, we're going to continue this pattern, but let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to chain 2. We're going to work a half double into that half double crochet from the last row. Now as we work across these stitches, we're going to work a double crochet into the single crochets and a single crochet into the double crochets. Okay, so, or another way of putting it is the tall stitch, which is the double crochet, goes into the single crochets and the single crochet into that double crochet. And by doing this, it really produces a beautiful background fabric onto which we're going to place our stars for the field. Okay, so again, double crochet into the small stitch or those single crochets and a single crochet into those double crochets. So go ahead and work that over the first 96 stitches or until you get to the color change. When you get to the color change, I will show you how to continue. Now as we approach the color change here, we're going to work a single crochet, and then we're going to work a half double crochet here. Bring the yarn forward to the back side for these color changes, and let's go ahead and just pick up the red where we left off before, and let's just show you. So all that you're going to see is this tiny little thread there with the color change, which will happen at this point every row. So now that we've pulled the red through, we're going to work the rest of this row, which is going to be 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets, and we're just going to work that all the way across the row. 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets. And I want to just pause and let's just take a look at this, and just to show you that even combining these 2 stitches, that the height of these rows should be even, should be the same. So go ahead and finish this. I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 62, I've worked 2 front post double crochets, and now we're going to work half doubles in the last 2 half double crochets. Do not work in the turning chain. Okay, let's go ahead and turn for row 63. And this is where the diagonal is going to start appearing, because we're going to stagger these stitches in a particular way. So let me show you how we're going to do that. We're going to chain 2, and again this is row 63. We're going to work half double crochets into those first 2 stitches. We're going to work a back post double crochet in that next stitch, and then we're going to work 2 front post double crochets. Now one of these, it's changing the direction, and then another, it's keeping the direction. So we're going to do 2 front post and then 2 back post double crochets, 2 front post, and then 2 back post double crochets. And so you start to see this is going to start, becoming more pronounced as we work additional stitches. I think you're really going to like this stitch. So go ahead and work that all the way across, and I'll show you, or at least work it until you get to the blue field. For the last stitch, we're going to work a front post double crochet. But before we complete it, let's pick up the blue from the back side to complete that stitch, and then on to continuing with the blue field, we work a single crochet in that larger stitch, a double crochet in the smaller or the single crochet. So a single crochet and then a double crochet, and you can start to see what a lovely pattern this fabric is. So go ahead and work this across, and at the end we're going to work a half double crochet in that last stitch, chain 2, turn, and then a half double crochet, and then we'll work a double crochet into the first stitch and then a single crochet, and then just work again alternating. If you see a large stitch, work a small stitch, which is the single crochet. If you see the single crochet, which is the small stitch, work a double crochet on top of that to try to keep it evened out. Now as I work this last stitch of the blue field, it's going to be a double crochet, but before we complete the second part of the double crochet, go ahead and switch to that red yarn just like that. All right. Now for the red section, we're going to work 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets. And notice that these are not going to line up in pairs, okay? And we're purposefully having it one off so that we have diagonals, and this is going to be reversible on both sides. So again, across the row, we work 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets. So go ahead and work that across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 64, I've worked 2 back post double crochets, and then I'm going to work half doubles in the last 2 stitches, which were half doubles at the beginning of row 63. All right, so now let's turn for row 65, and continuing the stitch, I'm going to chain 2 half doubles into the first 2 stitches, and just to help you understand how the stitches worked, the key is to do the same thing with the first stitch, and then we begin the 2 stitches that are opposite to that, like for example for this row at the beginning of row 65, we're going to work a front post double crochet like we see, and then we're going to go to 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets. Okay, so 2 back post and then 2 front posts, and that's going to continue this diagonal pattern that we see establishing itself right now. So go ahead and work this until you get to the blue section. For the last stitch before we switch colors, we're going to work a single back post double crochet, and before we complete that stitch, make sure we grab the right one. There we go. Grab that dark blue color and finish out the stitch, and then we go back to our stitching the 2 stitch. So we work a single crochet followed by a double crochet, single crochet followed by a double crochet, and we're just going to continue that all the way to the end of this row. And then after we work the last stitch, which is going to be a half double, then we're going to chain 2 and we'll start the next row. So this is with the back side facing, and we're about to work the stitch that changes the color from the blue field to the red stripe. So that stitch is going to be a double crochet. So we work half of that double crochet, bring the yarn to the front because we have the back side facing, pick up that red and complete the stitch. So now to complete what we're doing here, we're going to work a front post double crochet in the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to work 2 back post stitches. So remember, this is still going to be staggered, so one stitch that you work is going to be a back post and another one's going to be a front post that we're changing to a back post, thereby keeping that diagonal pattern. So again, 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets. And let's just pause and take a look to be sure that diagonal is continuing in the work. Isn't that sweet? All right, so go ahead and finish this row, and then I'll show you how to begin the next one. This is what you should have after completing 66 rows. And just to be clear, I worked 2 front post double crochets and then half doubles in those last 2 stitches. Now let's go on to row 67. For row 67, we're going to chain 2, and again work half doubles into those first 2 stitches. After that, I'm going to work a back post double crochet, and then I'm going to follow that with 2 front post double crochets, followed by 2 back post double crochets. Let me pause and take a look at that. So we have those 2 half doubles, 1 back post double crochet, and then we get back to the 2 front post, 2 back post, and 2 front post, 2 back posts. So go ahead and work that all the way until you get to the blue field, and then we'll just continue on with the 2 stitch, but I will show you that. I will show you that transition with the blue field. So here's the section where we're going to switch colors. So we just worked 2 back post, and we're going to work another front post double crochet, but before we complete that stitch, we're going to grab that blue, and we'll return to the field of blue, and we're going to work a single crochet followed by a double crochet. So single crochet and a double crochet. Let me go ahead and pause so you can see that. All right, so go ahead and finish the blue field all the way to the end, where you'll work the half double at the end, and then turn and start the next row, which would be row 68, and you will start that with a half double, and you'll be working a double crochet and then a single crochet as you go across. All right, so go ahead and finish that, and I'll meet you after you start that next row right about at the same place. All right, so here's a color change. We are on row 68 at this point. Go ahead and work a double crochet, but before you complete it, we do have the back side facing us, so be sure that the strands are on the front side as you make this color change. And then we're back to working. We're going to work a back post double crochet in those 2 stitches, and then 2 front post double crochets, and that's going to be what we do for this. So again, after that color change, we work 2 back post, 2 front post, and again 2 back post, and 2 front posts. And if you're unsure where you are in the pattern, what I'd recommend you do is just kind of take a look at how these stitches are, or how the texture is on the diagonal. And if you find that it's not on the diagonal, then take a look and you might have to change something up, okay, or go back and check the written pattern or this place in the video. So go ahead and finish row 68, and then we'll start the row that follows. So at the end of row 68, we're going to work 2 half double crochets. Now I'm going to turn, and I'll get you started on row 69 with a chain 2 half doubles in those first 2 stitches, and then after that we're going to work a front post double crochet and 2 back post double crochets, and then again follow that with 2 front post double crochets and 2 back post double crochets. So go ahead and work that until you get to the blue field, and I'll show you how that transitions. So at the transition, we're going to work 1 back post double crochet. That would be the last red stitch, and then we're going to transition to the blue. All right, and then we go back to the single crochet and then double crochet. Whenever the front side is facing, you're always going to start with a double crochet on this blue field section. Okay, so go ahead and work that all the way across the row, and then go ahead and start row 70 with the blue field and come on back, and I will meet you at the transition again for row 70. And just to give you a little heads up, we're just going to work half double crochets going the other direction, because we're going to be changing in about 2 rows after that. We're about to change colors here. This is at row 70. Go ahead and work that double crochet, again bringing the yarn forward because we have the back side facing us. Pick up that red and complete that stitch. Now for the rest of this is again continuing on with row 70. We are going to just work into the top loops. We're going to work half double crochets in each stitch all the way across. So go ahead and do that, and there you go. All right, so go ahead and complete that row. So at the end of row 70, you should have 144 half double crochets, and on the blue field side, you should have a total of 96 stitches. So combined, you should have 240. All right, so let's go ahead and turn. And this is going to be the last row that we work for this stripe. And let's go ahead and switch up to our larger 9 or I 5.50 millimeters. So 5.50 millimeters. Make sure I said that right. Okay, we're going to start with the chain 1. Skip the first stitch, and working only in the front loop, we're going to work slip stitches only until we get to the blue field. When we get to the blue field, we're going to fasten off, but I will show you that once I get to that point. Now for row 71, I worked those slip stitches only to the red part. I'm not going to work those obviously over the blue field, and then I just fastened off, and then we're going to hide this on the back side. Now row 71 is only really 2/3 of a row, so just take a note of that, because if you start trying to find your place in the pattern and start counting the rows accordingly, remember to count each of these low front ridges also as a row. Count it from the right side of the flag, not from the left side with the blue field. That can be very, very confusing. So I just wanted to state that as we go forward, because that was row 71, and as like I said, we didn't go all the way across, but that's okay, because that is only a surface row. It's not one that's going to determine our stitch count or anything else. Well, this is the end of video number 1. If you are viewing this video upon the release of it, then the next video will be released 1 week from today. If this has been out for a while, you should be able to go on to video number 2, and the link will be in the video description.